Hey guys, this is Tiffany Martin with Medical Microbiology, and we are starting immunity. We've got two chapters for immunity, chapters 15 and 16. And the first chapter is going to talk about innate immunity, and the second chapter is going to talk about adaptive immunity. But before we really get started, we're going to do kind of an overview concept map so we can figure out how immunity works and the interactions between innate immunity and adaptive immunity. Okay, so when we're talking about immunity, we're talking about our defense mechanisms. We are actually resistant to most of the microorganisms on this planet. There's lots of microorganisms that don't do anything. There's microorganisms that can invade plants or different animals, and we are just naturally immune to those. That's considered species resistance. They just don't affect us. Now, we do have some that do affect us, so that these are considered pathogens for us. So what are our defenses against these potential pathogens? We're going to kind of break that in. Now I'm going to go into my concept map kind of thing because this really helps me, and I think it helps you. I usually draw this on the big whiteboard and we kind of draw it as we go, but I'm going to go ahead and just put it out there so that you've got this. But this is something you should be kind of recreating as we go along. I think that that's kind of helpful for you too as we're doing that. All right, so our big topic for chapter 15 and 16 is immunity. We have innate immunity, which is chapter 15, and then we'll look at adaptive immunity. All right, so differences between innate immunity and adaptive immunity. And I know immunology is a huge topic. You get this in a lot of different classes. You probably had it in biology. You definitely had it in A&P. It is a huge topic. And so you've had some experience for this. So if I were to ask you differences between innate immunity and adaptive immunity, you know some of them, and that's good. A lot of people want to tell me innate immunity is natural and adaptive immunity is acquired. I think a lot of courses kind of teach it that way, and some textbooks kind of teach it that way. Something I like better is when we're describing innate versus adaptive, is innate is a non-specific defensive response. And adaptive immunity is a specific defensive response. So what do I mean by that? When we're talking about innate immunity, we're going to talk about our body's defenses against anything foreign, anything that the body determines is foreign and worthy of defense, worthy of an immune response. This falls under a innate immunity and a non-specific response. We don't need to know it. We don't need to identify it. We don't need to have seen it before. Our body just defends against it because it's foreign and it's worthy of an immune response. Okay, versus specific, and this is where people other textbooks may say you have to acquire it. Now, when they do that, we are born with the ability to form an adaptive immune response. So that's why I don't kind of like that acquired thing. It's that we're born with some cells that will respond into this way, but they kind of have to be trained to defend. So they're waiting for something, some checks and balances to determine, yes, this is a bad guy. This is a particular bad guy, and I'm the one that's trained. I am the particular cell that is trained to defend the body against that. I am designed to protect the body from that. So that's what we mean by specific. So we'll get into more of that with chapter 16. When we are talking about immunity, we can break it down to innate and adaptive. We can also break it down into first line, second line, and third line of defense. So we're going to talk about under innate immunity, that's your first line of defense and your second line of defense. And when we talk about first line, this is going to be physical barriers, things that just physical barriers that protect us. Then we'll talk about some second line of defense and some cells. If it does get past our physical barriers and does get inside, then what happens? So we're going to talk about some cells, some chemicals our body can make, and some different processes that our body goes through. Okay, so this is your concept map. We will come back to this as we go through and make sure that you can put all of the different details where they go in this concept map. Okay, so that's our intro into the chapter. I'm going to start there, and we will pick up with the next one where we will talk about that first line of defense. Thanks, guys.